Hola, mis amigos, and welcome to Touching Base. Today, we're going to be talking about National League Central. National League Central is a division that has had all 5 teams make it to the playoffs in the last 10 years. If you're a fan of any of the teams, you have had the benefit of going to the playoffs and seeing your team have some sort of success over the last 10 years. I feel like it's one of the most intriguing and competitive divisions going into 2019. I'm going to begin talking about the division champions from last season, the Milwaukee Brewers. The Milwaukee Brewers were crowned National League Central champions last year by virtue of winning Game 163 in Wrigley Field, a tiebreaker between them and the Cubs to see who would win the division. They had a very, very good season last year, surpassing 90 wins and making it all the way to the National League Championship Series. The Milwaukee Brewers have a very strong outfield, anchored by the National League MVP, Christian Yelich. Christian Yelich had a beyond breakout year. He was always a very good hitter in Miami, but moving over to a more hitter-friendly venue saw all of his offensive numbers spike through the roof. Over 30 home runs, 300 batting average, 100 RBIs. He finally put it all together and had more of an impact on his team than I believe anybody else did throughout the National League. Hence my support towards him becoming the MVP. Along with Yelich, they also have Lorenzo Cain and Ryan Braun in the outfield, 2 veteran, productive players, and also players who affect the ball on both offensively and defensively. Milwaukee signed Yasmani Grandal this offseason. They brought back Mike Moustakas again. Their lineup was never really an issue, and yet they doubled down and made sure that their offense was as strong as possible going into this season. And I definitely feel that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next number of years. The amount of talent that's on that roster is pretty impressive. Somebody I really enjoy seeing play is the shortstop Orlando Arcia. Although his bat isn't as potent as his glove is in the field, he's an amazing defender at shortstop. His ability to get timely hits throughout the playoffs last season when it came to crunch time really elevated them and helped them get to where they ended up getting a game shy of going to the World Series. Hitting has never really been an issue for Milwaukee. The issue has always been, do they have enough pitching? Their starting rotation is decent, but they rely heavily on their bullpen, namely pitchers like Corey Knebel, Jeremy Jeffries, and in my opinion, the best reliever out in the game right now, Josh Hader. Josh Hader is such a valuable piece in that you can throw him out there for 3 innings and he'll be effective throughout that stretch. It's even more important for them to have a weapon that they can unleash at any given time throughout the game. Something that became a bit of a trend last year was the idea of an opener. Milwaukee even doing so in the playoffs, using an opener, essentially a relief pitcher coming in, facing a certain number of batters, and then handing it off to a more established starting pitcher to get you through the middle of the game, giving that starting pitcher one last time to face the heart of the order, and then finish it off with the back end of your bullpen. Milwaukee is definitely a team that could use that effectively because of their interchangeable parts when it comes to their rotation. They don't have anybody who's going to give you exactly 200 innings, but they have a lot of guys who can get you quality outs each and every night. So it's a very hard team to match up against because you don't know who you're going to be facing from one at-bat to another. Like I said earlier, their lineup is pretty strong, and they have even more prospects coming up, like Keston Hiura and Corey Ray, second base and outfield respectively. The most valuable currency nowadays in Major League Baseball is impact top prospects, and I believe that the Brewers have a number of strong position players that are young in their Major League roster and enough coming up that they'll be able to supplement them well. I just feel that they need one true ace to get over the hump and really become a World Series contender. I can see them competing for the division once again, but I feel like when it comes to the playoffs, they're going to jump into the same problem of you don't have the aces to match up against the rotations of Washington, the Mets, the Dodgers. There's a number of teams out there who have legitimate aces, and you can't bullpen your way through an entire playoff format. You can do it for one series. I just don't see it happening all the way through the World Series. Until the Brewers get some more solid, you know what you're gonna get starting pitching, I feel like they're always going to be just shy of winning it all. The next team I want to break down is gonna be the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs season ended before they would have liked, having lost Game 163, a tiebreaker between them and the Brewers, which was in Chicago. Following that up with a loss again at home to Colorado in the National League wildcard game. The Cubs' playoffs aspirations ended rather quickly. That being said, the Chicago Cubs come into this season with probably the best overall roster in the entire National League. If you look at their lineup, with Contreras behind the plate, Kris Bryant at third, Anthony Rizzo at first, Javier Baez either at shortstop or at second base, depending on what happens with Addison Russell, Kyle Schwarber, Jason Hayward. These guys have young, controllable pieces throughout the entire field, and they all produce. Anthony Rizzo is one of the best players when it comes to adjusting from one strike to two strikes. He eliminates the toe tap and really tries to hone in and make sure he doesn't strike out on two strikes, which is something that almost nobody in the game does. You see hitters nowadays with two strikes and their approach is exactly the same as if they had no strikes, and that's why there's so many strikeouts in the league, because everybody's just trying to work on launch angle and hitting the ball 1,000 feet. He is making an adjustment to what's being thrown to him and just trying to put the ball in play, and he understands the value of simply putting the bat on the ball and forcing the defense to make a play, something I wish more people would do. I feel like the fact that Kris Bryant had a down year is going to refocus his abilities, and I can see him putting up an MVP type year if he stays healthy. He had some injuries concerns last year, but if he's over those, I definitely see him in top 5 MVP candidate. He won it before. He won the Rookie of the Year before. So you know he's a supreme talent. It's just a matter of staying consistent and staying hungry. The fact that the Cubs season ended the way it did last year, I believe puts a renewed amount of energy in this ball club, because they won't be as complacent as they were in the last couple years, I feel. After they won the World Series in 2016, there was less of an onus for the team to win right away, because they finally broke the curse that lasted over 100 years between World Series titles. So the team, I feel like after that, got more relaxed, and I don't want to say they didn't care as much, but the 2 years after that were extremely disappointing, and I feel that this is a roster that should have been in the World Series the last 2 years. I feel like they've had a better roster than the Dodgers the last 2 years, and the only reason that they haven't gotten to the World Series but the Dodgers have is because simply the Dodgers are hungrier. The Dodgers haven't won a World Series since 1988, so they have more of a mentality of, I want to bring a World Series back home, as opposed to the Cubs, a little bit more complacent since they already won. Arguably the best player on the roster, because of the season he just come off of, would probably be Javi Baez, since for the first time he's finally put it all together. He hit over 30 home runs, he knocked in over 100 RBIs, and he gave you amazing defense at not only second base but also shortstop and third when needed. I feel like his defense alone makes him an all-star, but the fact that he is now hitting and defending like a beast is really what's gonna put them over the top. This team is gonna be a problem they've been very strong the last number of years and are going to step up and show a better effort down the stretch this year. Names like Lester and Cole Hamels and Kyle Hendricks and Jose Quintana give you a lot of confidence going into this year, because if you have veteran starting pitching that knows what it's doing, set up batters and basically not overexert themselves, and basically pitch effectively with a young, strong position player group, this team is going to be quite formidable. I'm not as excited about their bullpen as I was about Milwaukee's, as they don't have a lockdown closer. I know they have Brandon Morrow. For the most, he's an effective reliever, but there's a difference between being an effective reliever and being a shutdown closer. I feel like there's ways to get base runners on against him. You start looking at some of the dominant strikeout closers like Kenley Jansen and Aroldis Chapman. If their stuff is on, it's 1-2-3. Game is over as soon as they come in. I never get that feeling when Brandon Morrow comes into the game of this game is over, the opposing team isn't coming back. So I'm not saying he won't do a good job. I'm just saying that I have less excitement about their bullpen as I do about the rest of their team. The next team in the division that I'm going to break down will be St. Louis. This past off season, St. Louis finally pulled the trigger and got what I believe was a legitimate middle of the order lineup piece in Paul Goldschmidt. They did something similar the year before with Marcell Ozuna, and I do believe that he's an effective lineup piece. I'm glad that they added him to the team, but I feel that Goldschmidt is on a different level. He's somebody that I've seen throughout his career get off to slow starts, but once he corrects them, he carries the ball club for the rest of the year. This is something they didn't really have last year. They haven't had that for a number of years, since they got rid of Albert Pujols. St. Louis has always been a good team. They've always been in the mix for playoffs by virtue of their pitching factory. I don't know what it is about St. Louis, but these guys churn out starting pitching like it's nobody's business. Every year I see another starting pitcher. Last year, Jack Flaherty. A couple years before that, Carlos Martinez. Right now, Alex Reyes coming up. These guys have pitching for days, and whenever anybody goes down, bring somebody up from the minor leagues, slot them in, act like nothing happened. The pitching is never a problem for St. Louis, and I don't understand what it is in that organization, but they do an amazing job of never having to break it down completely. In my time watching baseball, I have not seen St. Louis do a full rebuild. The quickest that they had a turnover was from one year to the next, and boom, they're right back into competitiveness. These guys have a very good scouting department, and they do a very good job developing their pitching prospects. Although their pitching has been great the last number of years, their offense is more inconsistent. Matt Carpenter and Yadier Molina would probably be the mainstays of consistency when it comes to their lineup the last number of years, but they have a lot of interchangeable parts in their outfield. Before now, first base. Matt Carpenter has been their primary first baseman, third baseman, and second baseman throughout his career on different years, so he's very valuable in the fact that he can hold it down at numerous positions. Now he's going to be their everyday third baseman with the trade of Goldschmidt. They're going to see if they can re-sign him after the end of the season. I feel that he's a very good piece and he fits the ball club well. I feel like he has a legitimate threat to the lineup, something they haven't had, like I said, since the days of Albert Pujols. Regardless of what moves happen any year, I always feel that the St. Louis Cardinals will be in the mix some way, shape, or form. I've never taken them for granted. I've always seen them as a model of professionalism in the sport of baseball and a model of consistency, in that every year they're competitive, and quite competitive. They didn't have a very good year last year, but at no point last year did I feel that they were completely out of the race. They made it all the way till the last couple weeks of the season with a potential playoff spot on the line. And it looks like St. Louis is going to be a force to be reckoned with again this season. Next up is going to be Pittsburgh. Like a number of teams in the National League, Pittsburgh has a very good core of young position players. Their outfield with Corey Dickerson, Gregory Polanco, and Starling Marte is one of the more athletic outfields that you're going to find in the game. You have Josh Bell and Colin Moran at the corners, and Francisco Cervelli behind the plate. They could be either very, very good and compete for a potential wild card, or they could take steps back and try to sell off pieces at the deadline. We look at last deadline, they actually traded for Chris Archer, a very good starting pitcher in the American League, but somebody who hasn't put it all together on a consistent basis. Perhaps going to the National League will help him. I feel that if you go from pitching in the American League East, where he was constantly facing Boston, New York, Baltimore, and Toronto, so 4 of the best hitting venues in all of baseball, and he was consistently going to each one of those multiple times a year, plus he pitched in Tropicana Field, which is a hitter-friendly ballpark, and on top of that, having to face a designated hitter, which is something he won't have to do in the National League, I feel that all together will make for a much better experience in Pittsburgh than he had at the end of what he was doing in Tampa Bay. Aside from Archer, they have Jameson Taillon and Trevor Williams, 2 very young, promising talents in their rotation that should be able to help them compete for the next number of years. Having those 3 at the top of the rotation definitely is a very good starting point, and a legitimate closer in Felipe Vasquez at the end makes for a formidable pitching staff. The Pirates don't really have a hole per se. They have the pieces to compete. The question is, will the players that they have take the next step and become perennial all-stars, or will they stay as they are and be quality major leaguers but not exceptional major leaguers? I feel like a lot of players on Pittsburgh are on the cusp, but they're just not there yet. And until I see that throughout the entire year, I can't have as much confidence in the Pirates as I would like to. Last team I'm going to be hitting on today will be the Cincinnati Reds. Cincinnati has imported a lot of talent to their roster this offseason. They brought in Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, Sonny Gray, Alex Wood, and Tanner Roark. 5 very experienced veterans that can only help the already young nucleus of what Cincinnati is trying to grow. They have Votto under contract. Players like Scooter Gennett and Eugenio Suarez are only going to benefit from guys like Puig and Kemp helping them out, giving them tips, giving them different views. And I feel like Puig is going to be a very interesting person to add because he's so high energy that he's going to invigorate the entire fan base. He's going to make everybody want to show up to the ballpark because you're bound to see something interesting every time you go out there. Puig is very extra, so you know that his effort level can fluctuate between being very lackadaisical and his hair is on fire. The additions of Sonny Gray, Tanner Roark, and Alex Wood basically redid the entire rotation for Cincinnati. They don't really have legitimate starters. Well, they didn't at the offset of the offseason, but bringing in the guys that I mentioned are definitely going to show the rest of the rotation a good example to follow. I believe that Sonny Gray was not fit for New York. The way his season panned out, it just wasn't going to work. It wasn't that he wasn't effective, but for whatever reason, some people just can't make it in New York, and he needed a change of scenery. Tanner Roark and Alex Wood were nice additions on top of the Sonny Gray deal because I feel that Sonny Gray will shoulder most of the weight going into the season, and the other 2 pitchers can simply assist in the growth of the rest of the rotation. Oh, and by the way, they also have Joey Votto, pretty much the best first baseman in the league. Never strikes out, hits you over 300. The best contact hitter in the game. Former MVP, multiple Silver Sluggers, one of the most cerebral hitters in terms of watching what they're throwing towards him and adjusting from pitch to pitch. Being able to recognize the way you're trying to set him up and being able to take a fastball on the outside paint, still serve it the opposite way. On top of all the players they already have in the major league roster, they also have prospects in Nick Senzel and Jonathan India. A couple of third base prospects, but I feel that Senzel profiles better as a utility / outfielder, kind of in the mold of Javier Baez, but without the same defensive impact that Javi brings. I feel that Nick Senzel could be something along those lines. But the prospect that I'm the most excited about is Hunter Green. Two-way prospect, pitcher, and a shortstop. Has 100 in the back pocket, and this guy's only like 20 years old. So he has all the time in the world to develop and get bigger and get stronger. And oh, by the way, he can hit as well as pitch. This kid is really gonna be something special when he makes it to the show. Being able to do both is something we haven't seen almost ever. Shohei Ohtani showed glimpses of it last year, but after injuries, he wasn't able to pitch after a while, but he was still able to hit. He's gonna be able to hit this upcoming season. I want to see what it looks like when you give somebody a chance on a consistent basis to have starts and also hit regularly on the days that he doesn't start. Hopefully Ohtani can do that in the next couple years so that when Hunter Green comes up, he'll have a solid basis already in place for him to be able to do something as well, because I feel that that is something that the game is really missing. Somebody who can do both, who can pitch and hit at an elite level. This team has a lot of good pieces, and they're one of those teams that are in the middle. They could be very competitive, they could shock a lot of people, and they can compete for a wild card this upcoming season. Or if they don't get off to the start that they need, they have a lot of contracts that are movable and able to replenish the farm system even more going forward. So the Reds are an interesting team to look at in the 2019 season. Now, the roundup. I see the Cubs coming out on top. I feel that they have the best roster in all of baseball. They have a lot of veteran leaders on that ball club, so they'll be able to kick it into another gear when they need to. And I do not see a repeat of what happened last year. Although they won 95 games last year, it still wasn't what people expected down the stretch. There wasn't a sense of energy down the stretch. And I feel that this year, there will be that sense of energy. I believe that the Brewers will come in second place and will be vying for a wild card spot. Less because the Brewers took a step back and more because I feel that the Cubs are just a better overall team than them. I wouldn't be overly surprised if the Brewers won the division, but I feel that they are just a notch below the Cubs overall. They don't have the starting pitching that the Cubs have. The Cubs don't have the same bullpen that the Brewers have. Kind of evens out, but overall, I think that the Cubs are just a little bit better, and at the end of the day, that's really all you need to win the division. You don't have to beat them by 10 games, you just have to beat them by 1. You win one more game than they do, you're the division winner. And one win matters a lot. The Cubs definitely know that. So I feel that those two teams are going to be very neck and neck this year, but I think the Cubs are going to be just a bit better. I think the Cardinals are going to come in third. They're always going to be competitive. They're always going to be right there with the top two teams in the division. For a stretch, they were the top team in the division. They've regressed a little bit in the last couple years, but adding Goldschmidt definitely improves their lineup, and it gives an overall sense of we're ready to compete for a deep playoff push. Now, I think that the Cardinals are going to be solidly in the mix for a wild card, and I wouldn't be surprised if they overtook both teams and won the division, but my prediction is that they're going to come in third. I believe the Reds are going to come in fourth place because despite all the excitement that their offseason has brought, I still feel that Tanner Roark and Alex Wood bring too many question marks with them. I feel that if they had an established ace in front of those three, I would be a little bit more confident. But if Sonny Gray is going to be their number one, I don't know if they're going to be able to do what they need to do to make it throughout the entire 162 game season. I feel that the Pirates are going to come in last place because I simply don't think that they're ready to compete just yet. More so because they have to face the Brewers and the Cubs so many times throughout the year. I don't see them having a winning record against either club. So I just think that the National League is too strong for them to actually make noise. This is how I feel that the National League Central is going to pan out this year. If you agree, please let me know. If you don't agree, please leave a comment letting me know how you think the National League Central is going to come out. And I would love to hear different trains of thoughts as to where the National League Central is heading for this year and for the future. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time.